Welcome back to the Play Pouch. I'm joined by my illustrious partner, Nick. How you doing, dude? I
Not well.
know it's not great.
Yeah, it's not been the best day for me. But and we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy, so that will cheer me up a little bit. But no, yeah, not the best day for me. But we plod on, and but today's quite a special show, isn't it, Pete? What are you going to tell him why?
Yeah, we are celebrating our first 100 subscribers, and we're ever so grateful with everyone who's chosen to support us. We really are. It's been just over a year now since we went live with our channel, and yeah, it's just really nice to see that our channel sort of taking off a little bit from literally nothing.
Yeah,
So yeah, let's just thank you to everyone again. It's really really awesome. If you do choose to want to support us a little bit more, we have a Patreon channel. And yeah, that will sort of enable us to speak on YouTube a little bit freely without worrying about being demonetized and stuff like that.
yeah,
Which we want to be able to speak our mind. We don't want to be restricted to stuff, not being able to say certain words, which is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so we are talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
yeah. Before we get on to it, just a little bit aside, Pete. So we've run 104 subscribers, and I know that I am subbed with my account, so there's probably 102 unique subscribers. So to all 102 of you, we are really grateful. I know some of you are here because of me being a Spurs fan, and you've probably seen me in some of the Spurs channels, the Tottenham FC, which
Right.
is football. And I know that some of you are here for that, but it's far from everyone. I know a lot of people also have found our stuff when we had. Do you remember the Silent Hill Ascension video, which was our kind of first kind of, I won't say big hit, but that was the first video where it's like, why is this one doing so well?
Yeah.
And it was that horrible Silent Hill Ascension game,
Yeah.
which was brutal.
It
Uh,
is a bit dire. Yeah.
yeah, and for a while that was the video that we had most success on, and then I think we started getting with the Xbox is kind of falling apart video, which I think is our biggest video to date. And I think was that 3,000 views. Did that go to Pete? 4,000? Might be up to 4,000 now.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked. I've been like really busy doing other stuff today. I have sort of checked like the comment section a couple of times, but yeah, no, not checked. But it is in the thousands.
Yeah. And there might be some people who say, well, that's not much. Well, it is when you're starting off and you've only got, you know, 60 or 70 subs, which is what we had before that video. But of course, we've had quite not a growth spurt, for lack of a better term, I suppose, ever since that video. And then we did the video the next week, which is kind of replying to a lot of the comments, accusing us of being Sony fanboys, which I thought was
Funny.
that's so funny since Pete doesn't even own it. I mean, it's just like you couldn't be more wrong. It's just like Pete's such a fanboy of Sony that he doesn't own a PlayStation 5. He didn't buy a PlayStation 4. Did you have a PlayStation 3?
Yeah.
There you go then. So he hasn't bought one since a PlayStation 3. That's how big a fanboy of Sony Pete was. So we found
Yeah.
that quite entertaining to be called Sony fanboys. So we thought the only fair thing to do was, we covered the Sony side of their version of Game Pass. And yeah, so that's probably the big memories. One last thing is our first video was on Starfield. I do remember that.
Hmm.
And then we had a couple of videos about our history in video games and stuff like that. And I think we did a Bethesda deep dive as well, which we weren't that happy with. And
Hmm.
do you remember recording it? And it went on for like 3 hours, and we were like, "Yeah, we
Yeah.
shouldn't cover every single game here. They've done way too many games for us to cover here. This is going to be a nightmare."
Yeah.
So we ended up trimming a lot of it, didn't we? I remember.
Yeah, a heck of a lot.
Yeah. Do you have any memories before we get on to Final Fantasy that stick out? I know it's only been a year, but you know, it is our
Not,
first landmark.
not really, mate. To be quite honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I love talking about games and you know the going into sort of deep dives and stuff like that, and you know, but no, I don't. Nothing really sticks out, to be quite honest. It's just like is what it is. They are what they are.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not all been negative stories. I mean, the video game industry does do a lot of crappy things. So we are bound by the fact that they do a lot of crappy things, especially their business practices. So it's hard to not report on that stuff when they're so egregious. And it's most of the companies as well. There's very few of them that don't take this practice. And we come from a generation where, like it or not, you just bought the game. And the game was the game. The game was the finished game. And then we've sat and watched for the last 20 years or so with the rise of the internet, especially, and broadband, that, you know, finished games that can no longer come out finished anymore.
Yeah.
Everything's patched, everything's monetized. And because now the big corporations have finally caught onto the fact that the game industry is worth so much, they've infested it just like they infested Hollywood and films. The same thing's happened, unfortunately.
That's right.
So, you know, we're not overly negative. Trust me, I've been called negative enough for one day. I won't go into that anymore. But we're not overly negative, but we report on the stories that come out. And a lot of the stories, not all, a lot of the stories are games companies treating their consumers badly, rinsing them for as much money.
Yeah, they're treating us like cash cows.
That's
basically.
what I mean. And so that's the way that it is. You know, me and Pete don't particularly always want to talk. In fact, it can get very depressing for us as well when we hear about another company shutting down, or EA shutting down another company, or they're going to make another live service, which everybody knows is going to fail, but they're going to do it anyway. Countless times.
No, the point is, we're honest, and if a game is good, we'll say it's good, we'll praise it, and if we think it's bad, then it's bad. That's it's as simple as that. So anyway,
yeah.
Moving on to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So this is a remake of a game, if you didn't know, that came out in 1997 with such wonderfully blocky graphics. And Squaresoft, or Square Enix as they're known now, has seen it fit to remake these games. And we were hoping, myself and you, were hoping that they would stay faithful. But the first remake, because originally the game was 3 discs, and now each disc is being remade as a separate game.
Yep.
So the first disc was set in Midgar and all that, and it showed a lot of promise. And we'll get into all the sort of the plotline dynamics in a bit, but the second one is it left us wanting a little bit, and I say a little bit, but it probably is quite a lot. And yeah, I mean, the first one was great, but this one, I don't think we like it very much.
Well, let's before we do get into the meat and the bones, let's discuss what we have and haven't done. So, as said, Pete doesn't have a PlayStation 5. So you have watched the cutscenes of the movie, haven't you?
Yeah.
Which means he's actually seen more of it than me. Now, I'm a very slow player. I bought this in January. Then I ran into some spoilers that I hated, basically, and it made me not want to play the game. We'll talk about the spoilers. For anyone who has listened to us talk about Final Fantasy VII, it's probably going to be pretty obvious what it is. But it made me not want to play the game. Eventually, I had to kind of talk myself into it around about March. Started playing it in March. We're obviously August now. And I was pretty hardcore on it. Like, it was my main game, played it nearly every day, a couple of hours when I could. But I couldn't bring myself to finish it. Basically, when it got to about June or so, I said to myself, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going to take a week off. That's what I said to myself. and the week turned into fortnight. The fortnight turned into months. It's now August, second half of August now, and I said to Pete that if I don't go back to it last week, then I'm probably not going back to it. So I made it like this is the last chance, and I didn't go back to it. That should tell you probably what the review is going to be like, because I love Final Fantasy VII. It's my favorite game, the original.
Yeah.
If I couldn't bring myself to finish it, then there's something wrong that has affected me as a hardcore Final Fantasy VII fan. And yes, the spoiler that we will get into did have a big effect on this. It doesn't exactly motivate me to get to the ending, because I know that the ending's shit to me.
Mm.
But it wasn't that did it. It was the whole bunch of the mini games, which we'll get into. So we'll get into it now, but that's the point where they're coming from. So I'm going to say that I've played about 85%, 80 to 85% of the game. I got to like chapter 12, and there's 13 chapters, right? So I've played the majority, and I did all the side quests, right? Probably shouldn't have, in hindsight, because I kind of burnt myself out, but I did. So I've seen at least probably 85% of this game, I think, and I played 85% of the content. So that's where I'm coming from. So I just wanted to let people understand that this isn't just, this is Pete who's going to judge it on the story, probably a bit more than the gameplay, me, but I can tell you about the gameplay as well. And there is issues with the gameplay as well.
Well, yeah, we should explain really. I understand that Square Enix were trying to make this a good game, and they put so much effort into this title, and it clearly shows, right? It clearly shows that they thought about a heck of a lot of things. The issue that me and you have is the fact that there's too many mini games, and I think that we'll find that there's a general consensus where people agree with that. That there aren't. It's just like there's just too many. It's like you go around a corner, you do something, mini game. Go around the corner, talk to someone, another mini game. And on top of all this barrage of mini games, you've got the card game, which I'm a Magic the Gathering fan,
it's all right.
It's
not the worst mini game there. Trust me, there's a lot worse. But no, it hasn't got the in-depth stuff as like Gwent, for example, or Magic the Gathering, or Hearthstone. I play Hearthstone, as you know, more than Magic. No, it's not up to that. It's not. But I mean, I generally wouldn't expect it. I mean,
it was a final nail in the coffin, along with everything else. Like I'm talking about yourself as you played through. It just got to be too much in terms of mini games and stuff like that.
It's knowing where to start. I mean,
they went too far, I think, is probably the simplest way that they could do it. They over-delivered, if that is such a thing.
It's one of the few games, and it really is few, because more often than not, Pete will be saying the exact opposite. Even last week with your Mass Effect 2 review, with our Mass Effect 2 review, you said to me, I wish there was more. I wish there was more. In this game, you wish there was less.
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing to ever say. I think the reason why I say that you wish there was less is because there's too many of these mini games, and I don't know where the inspiration came from. Final Fantasy VII, the original, had a couple.
Yeah.
Most of which were in the Gold Saucer, right? But they've just gone crazy with it. And I played Crisis Core, and I noticed there was a lot of mini games in that, more than I would have wanted. But and I played Crisis Core not long before I played Rebirth, because that was a part of the story that I wanted to kind of, because they're all linked together. That was a part of the story I hadn't really played. So I played Final Crisis Core Reunion before Final Fantasy Rebirth.
Yeah.
So I noticed that there was more mini games, but I never ever thought in my life that they would just obsess about mini games. Nearly every other side quest is mini games. There is a couple of main quests that you do have to do side quests for, but in their defense, because I'm going to be as fair as I can, I'd say 90% of the side quests are optional. Mini games are optional. They are.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're a sort of Final Fantasy VII fan who wants to complete everything, you may well get really tired of these mini games and stuff like that. I mean, look, this is our personal opinion. We're not saying that mini games are crap. Or too many mini games are crap. That's just how we feel. If you enjoy these mini games, that's absolutely fine. It's just like we just felt like it took quite a lot away from the story. We were wanting to experience the story, and they decided to just go ham on it. The bloody mini games, just like, oh, here's another mini game, here's another mini game, here's another mini game. Wow. Just like, dude, did no one like QA this and sort of go, guys, there's just too many mini games, man?
They must have thought that there wasn't enough meat on the bones. They must have thought that the middle disc, which is it's almost like a road adventure. The middle disc, and the first disc is Midgar. The middle disc is where the bulk of the exploration in the game does take place. So, but they obviously felt that in order to pad out everything and to populate the world, and we'll get onto the world because it's really not as open world as you might think, and the open world's not great. We'll get to that. But they must have padded it out with all these mini games to try to make it be bigger than I suppose the original second disc was. But in the end, that they probably didn't need to. And actually, what it does is that it dilutes the story. It makes everything not seem as important. I mean, the idea is meant to be of the storyline is you're meant to be following Sephiroth and all these dudes in black hoods, which obviously, because we know the story, end up, they're basically Genova. They've got Genova cells basically in them. So basically, you spend the whole game following them, and you go to these different areas, these different towns close to the soul, and there's 5 or 6 different towns. And I think if they would have left maybe the side quests just to the towns and not had all these Crowley, whatever his name, the little AI kid, which is such an annoying character. I remember saying GP after I've played it for the first month or so that he gets more, he says more than any other character. He talks more and says more than Cloud, than Aerith, than Tifa, all the main characters. He gets more airtime. He gets more lines. That dude recorded more lines than any of the voice actors did for any other characters. And you just got. It's like I don't even know who you are. You weren't even in the original. Yeah. You're just there because
Chadley. That's his name.
Yeah, Chadley. Yeah, he is a Chad, isn't he?
Giga Chadley.
Yeah. So it's like he's there, and generally his main role is to be the place where you kind of do the fighting arenas basically, and then the place where you get the materia. By the way, I much preferred the old ways of getting materia, where you actually had to do things, not where you just fight him and somehow he just magically creates these summon materia. It's like, what?
Yeah. That's a bit. It's a bit strange. I would have much preferred to find them, in some sort of dusty cave at the depths.
What I mean. And that was a problem in the first game. So that's not exclusive. I didn't like it in the first game. It's one of the things I didn't like in the remake part 1 was the fact that again the summoning materia was all behind Chadley. It's like, I don't even know who you are. They've just included you to, they couldn't think of something better. And I suppose I understood it a little bit in the fact because you were trapped in Midgar, so how are you going to find all the summon materials in Midgar? It's like, okay, so maybe that's less realistic. But if you're now exploring the world, you couldn't have added some caves or some interesting places.
Okay, yeah, no, we really do need to bring this up because I know Unreal Engine 4 is capable of an open world environment. And if you code it properly, then, you can have a decent open world environment. The way Square Enix did it is that it's zoned. So it's a lot like with The Witcher 3, where it's like open world, yeah, but in small sections. And there's linear paths to the next zone. I didn't like that. I don't think that fitted for this game. I would have much preferred to have it massive open world and you could go anywhere and if that was too difficult, all right, fine, fair enough. I don't understand why you didn't just go, start making it in Unreal Engine 5 or upgrade to Unreal Engine 5 for the second one. The process isn't that much of a pain in the arse, especially for a huge company like Square Enix. I mean, I've gone from Unreal Engine 4 to 5, and I'm not like a games developer at the moment. I am a cinematics maker, and it wasn't really much of an issue. So I don't really get why they didn't go to Unreal Engine 5 as soon as they could. It could have been a Lumen issue or whatever. But anyway, the open worlds just I think kind of spoiled it a little bit. That just there wasn't enough exploration, and whenever you did go and explore, there was always like a quest, or go here to collect something and come back and give it to that person. It was your average sort of fetch quest malarkey, which is it's fine, but it has to be done in moderation, just like the mini games, and there has to be a variety and. Yeah, and you were right. There needed to be just sort of areas, and there are areas. Don't get me wrong. You can go to different areas, but there's always a purpose. It's not like, you just go to a random cave and explore it for no reason. There's always like a purpose for something being somewhere.
Yeah, and the open world, which is what we're talking about. It at the start, like the first half an hour or so, I found myself like. I remember going back near the where the first game ended, because you're literally more or less to start more or less with the first game. A little bit of time has passed, but you're basically map-wise, you're still kind of outside of Midgar, right? So you can literally go back nearly to Midgar, but not quite. The game doesn't let you go to Midgar. Yeah. And then you get the music start playing. I remember saying to you, I love the music, and I thought that we'll get to the score, I guess, later on. But let me just say that the music is not that great. The first song was, and I was tricked almost. That the quality of the songs were going to be, because it starts playing the main theme of the main theme of the first game. No lyrics, but it's beautiful, just like the end song is of the first game. So I was like, wow, this is a thing, So I was tricked a little bit with the first 30 minutes to an hour regarding the open world, and then I started noticing that it all ended up there was mountains that stopped you going certain ways. All positioned perfectly, and it's obviously by design. And then I realized that basically it is just corridors.
Yeah, corridors with a bit of a wide area.
Yeah, and also there was little to no exploration, because you have to use the towers, and people are going to think, oh, like Ubisoft towers. Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, more or less.
Almost as if they were ripped directly from Far Cry.
And and the reasons given. Oh, Chadley says something like, "Yeah, I'm going to get intel," and this is what I mean. It's all based around Chadley getting intel. It's like you weren't even in the main game, and now the whole game is nearly based around you. Getting summons come from you. You're telling me about all these things I've got to do about all the areas. You know everything about everything. It's like I didn't even know who you were, and. Generally, you'll scan the tower. You'll do a little mini game. I suppose it's called a mini game, where it's a little bit of a climbing section. But I mean, these are not difficult in the slightest. It's very mundane.
Yeah.
And you flick a switch, right, and then you have to jump down. And this all takes time, and it's fine the first couple of times. But what they do is they then pinpoint you to all the locations. And then you go to the locations, and I'm going to say there's 5 or 6 different locations, and they generally all do the same stuff. They'll either be a monster fight, which are just enhanced versions of monsters you've already been fighting, so slightly harder, not really harder, a little bit harder. But by that point, it's not an issue for you, right? If you're doing all the side quests, and you're going to run through most of this stuff on normal difficulty, obviously, right? So either you end up fighting some fiends to get intel, or you'll come across a live stream, which is another little mini game where you just hit a button 3 times, and that's okay if you want to do it once or twice. But this is in every region multiple times.
Yeah,
and it just becomes. I'll tell you what it becomes. Pete. It becomes like a checklist, and that is literally how my mind. Because I've got that kind of mind. I wish I didn't sometimes, but I've got that kind of mind where it's like, okay, so I'll just treat it. It's a checklist.
Yeah, each region has a list of things that you need to complete before you move on, etc. And which again is fine, but a lot of this is ruined by Chadley and his bullshittiness, and this issue with the fucking mini games. Why can't you just restrict the mini games largely to the Golden Saucer? And the whole golden Saucer segment was great, but I think there needed to be more in there. There needed to be more games. It was more of just like a linear thing.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have kept the mini games, like you said, Pete, just to the Gold Saucer, I don't think there'd be any complaining. Keep it to the place where it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And the quality of the mini games, it deviates. There's some that, and it will deviate for everybody. I don't think that like, I detest the piano one. I hate that with all my being. But if you're somebody who maybe is a bit more musically inclined than me, because I'm not musically gifted, then you might breeze through it and you might love it, and I accept that. But
it's not easy, that one.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not. But if you are into music and stuff, you will have an easier time with it, and I accept that it's just something that I'm not talented with. That's fine. But the problem is also that they do hide materia behind these side quests. So I'm not going to sit here and say you don't get a reward. You do, but in a way that makes it kind of, in this instance, that kind of makes it a little bit worse, because it's like, well, I don't really want to do this side quest, but I really want that materia. So you're going to be more powerful in the game, and the game's going to be more fun if you have the materia, because normally it's rare materia you can't find anywhere else. Not every mini game, but there's a lot of them where normally it's the highest prize, of course, so you can't get it easily. You have to beat the high score to get the special materia. So it's not only that you have to do the mini games, but it's that you've generally got to do them lots of times, because normally you won't get it on your first try. You've got to, you know what I mean? So you're like, okay, so you might have to do it if you're not that good at the mini game, the type of mini game it is, then you might have to do it 20 times or 30 times. If it's one of the harder ones, you might have to do it 30 times. And eventually, I did get all the mini games that I played, but some of them were really difficult for me, and I had to do them, like I said, multiple times. I mean, and then I got the materia, and then my characters were more powerful, and I had fun with having the extra materia. So the reward was worth it, so to speak, and that's why it's like I don't like the balance of it. You've put these incredibly powerful materia behind these mini games that vary in quality. I know what the answer people are going to say, though. People are just going to say, "Well, don't do it. Just follow the main quest." I know. That's
but if we're fans of the original, so we wanted to go through it, and if I had a PS5, I would have gone through it. But it's just, it would have pissed me off halfway through. I would have just been like, "Oh, mate, fuck's sake." So, yeah, I mean, like, for me, there was definitely way too many mini games. The whole Chadley thing with the materia behind, stuff. Just, I'm not sure that kind of worked out. I would have much preferred to have stumbled across it, or, as I said before, just go into a cave and defeat a boss, and there it is, kind of thing. I'm also disappointed that there weren't any sort of what you call those big fuckers, ruby weapon and emerald weapon, and you didn't fight any of that. They sort of slowly built up during the course of the main story, and they sort of get unleashed towards the end, don't they? And I was just like, oh, what? I thought at least maybe one or two.
No, see, those things you don't fight until the third disc. I knew they wouldn't be in the second game.
Oh, okay, all right, that's my.
You do fight them in the third game. They'll be in the third game as super bosses. I'm pretty sure of that. But
yeah, I mean, like, okay, so that's a lot of negativity. Let's just talk about. Let's talk about some positives first. Next, right?
Okay.
So. Graphics are really, really good for an Unreal Engine 4 for what they did, and I understand that they did a heck of a lot of coding to get done what they did get done. There's a lot of content, and it doing like it 100% is easily going to take over 100 hours.
Oh God, yes.
And if you're uber fan of Final Fantasy, then you're absolutely going to love this. So if you haven't played it, please do play it. Support the development team, because what they've done in it, the sheer amount of cutscenes in this game is it's like over 20 hours, and it's really really well done. There's a lot of talent behind this, and I really respect the amount of dedication and love that's gone into it, especially with characters like Aerith and Tifa and Barrett, etc.
They're all beautiful, dude. And I mean, this was a compliment of the first game as well. But I mean, they've made it. Obviously, they're dealing with a much larger environments in this game. I mean, in Midgar, there was a lot of going in the sewers. Let's be honest. It was the sewers and it was the shanty towns and the sewers mainly, right? But in this, there's pretty much, like I said, I've seen the majority. There could be a one biome I haven't seen, but there's every biome that you can think that appears in a lot of games, they're all kind of here. Jungles and cold areas and hot areas and stuff like that. All those biomes, it's beautiful. And even though when you do put it on performance mode, because I want to play my games in 60 frames per sec, the graphics do take a hit. Of course they do, but it's still pretty good. Some of the textures could,
there's a lot of pop-in issues with the textures, but if you don't mind that, it's absolutely fine.
But it runs at a solid 60. I know that there was some performance issues when it first came out, but by the time I played it, which was maybe a month or two after it came out, like I said, March, they had patched whatever issues, because I know there was a frame rate issue on the 60 frames per sec. I know there was. I know that there was issues at the start, the launch, so there was issues. But when I played it, I didn't notice a particular loss of frames. You fight the enemies you come across, so it's not like the olden days when you'd go to a different screen like in older games. So all the combat takes place in the real world, and it's all in its real time, and it can be paused, and there's no issues and stuff like that. So it's an incredibly beautiful game. There's no getting around it, and all the characters generally look great. So graphically, it's hard to come up with a flaw, though. I think we can say we wish every game looked as good as this, but obviously few games do.
Some of the set pieces are great as well. Where you come out into another area and you see like what's that big fucking town on the beach or sort of on the coast?
Coast of the Sol, isn't it?
There's Costa del Sol, but there's not Midgard, fucking that other sort of military city you go to. Junon Harbor, that's the one. It was that was amazing. And I mean, like, they did a really good job with it. It's just that, things like the fucking mini games, bro. I want to talk about.
Do you want to talk about the story, or do you want to talk about the kind of gameplay? Because I do have. I had a little bit of an issue with it. I noticed something in the gameplay that it's one of those things that once I noticed it, I couldn't unnotice it.
We'll talk about the gameplay. Go on.
Okay, so
just collecting the thoughts though.
It's not something I noticed right away, and I think it was the same in the first game. But if it was in the first game, it wasn't as prevalent in my mind. I didn't notice it as much, and maybe this is a bit of a problem with me because I did play them all in a very short amount of time. Like I literally played Final Fantasy VII Remake the end of last year, so that I would finish it just in time for Rebirth to come out. So I literally went from Final Fantasy VII Remake to Crisis Core, and I rushed through Crisis Core in like 3 weeks again because Rebirth was coming out, and I wanted to finish it in time. And then I went right to Rebirth. So maybe it was in the first game, but I didn't notice it as much. And that is that the enemies have a hard-on for your character. What do I mean by that? It means that.
Okay. I know what you're getting at. Go on.
Right. So if I'm playing as Cloud, it's all right. It's fine because Cloud is a tankish kind of character who's melee and do blocks and counters. So actually, when you're playing as Cloud, it ain't a big deal. Now, I like playing with Cloud and Aerith in my party. It was always those two, and then the third member who I'd switch around, unless the game forced me, obviously, that I couldn't have Aerith and Cloud together, because I ship. This is the terminology, isn't it? So I ship Cloudviff or whatever it's called, Air Cloud. I don't know what they're called together, right? So I ship them. So those two are my two favorite characters, right? So they were in my party. So Aerith is a magic user and the healer of the group. So of course I loaded her up with magic. So if I was ever in trouble, I would switch to Aerith, obviously, to get the heals. And then all of a sudden, all the enemies would stop attacking Cloud and beeline for me. And it kept on happening, and it was a problem because Aerith is a strong character, but she's not particularly a melee character. She's a ranged character. All her moves are mainly ranged. She's got one or two kind of short range moves, but I noticed it more and more, and I slowly got more and more frustrated with it. And I was just like, well, why is the AI doing this? Why is the AI just ignoring my other party members and just beelining for me all the time? And I just thought to myself, this is shit programmed AI. Because what's the point of having two other members with me, if as soon as I switch out to another character, the enemies ignore them? And I could not unsee it, Pete, after I noticed it was happening more and more. I couldn't unsee it. And I just thought to myself, I think this is poor. I think this is poor gameplay design. I think this is poor. It makes me not feel like my character, that I've got a group. It makes me feel that I'm just playing by myself because I'm getting all the attention all the time.
Yeah, so that bothered you, did it?
Big time. Once I noticed it, I couldn't unnotice it.
So if I was in charge of that particular section of the development, then I would have just sort of gone, okay, if you're going to switch character, then you get some time before they do go after you, because I totally understand why they did it. I don't think it's necessarily right. But if you're going to switch character, then you need at least like a minute before they turn around and start going.
You got maybe 3 or 4 seconds max, dude.
No, yeah, I know. But ideally,
yeah.
Right, because it's like we're switching character for a fucking reason, and if you're just going to beeline for us as soon as we do, then yeah.
I just felt it almost like it robbed having different classes, and maybe that they've obviously designed it this way. It's like, well, no, Aerith is my ranged attacker, right? She's all her abilities is about healing or ranged attack. She's my magic user, she's my healer, right? I don't want the enemies all running towards me, but I can't do anything about it because their focus won't change to Cloud. There's one ability in the game, I think it's called Provoke, right? Which only kicks in. Number one, it doesn't work on bosses. That's number one. Provoke doesn't work on bosses. And number two, it only triggered if your character went below a certain hit points and there was a cooldown involved. So what the idea in their mind was, okay, for argument's sake, if I'm playing as Cloud and Aerith, which I was, you put the Provoke on Cloud so that when they all come beelining for Aerith and they knock the shit out of her because they will knock her out of her animations and stuff in melee range, right? That eventually if she goes down to something like a third health or something, then Provoke will kick in and then they'll finally go and attack Cloud. But all that just to do it, and it doesn't work on bosses, which are the hardest fights you're going to have. So when you really need it, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
it's just
I
think it's bad design. I mean, maybe I'm being harsh, maybe I'm being overcritical, maybe I'm not meant to think about it so much, but I noticed I could not notice it afterwards. I was like, okay. Because come right, the reason why I noticed it is because, like I say, because I was playing with two completely opposite characters. The big tank character with the gigantic sword, who is meant to be there and get right in the thick of it, and then switching from him to her, which is meant to be a ranged character, and then watch them all fighting Cloud for 2 seconds. Then they both, and then all the enemies who are attacking Cloud, they all just ignore him and just come running for me, and I'm standing a long way. And it's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's so stupid, dude. I just thought to myself, this is fucking stupid. And I couldn't unsee it, mate. I couldn't unsee it.
Let it out, bro. Let it all out. Give in to the dark side.
It was. I just thought to myself, okay, this combat system, which I initially did like, and it still does some things well. The pausing of the time, I think that does let you play nearly turn-based, not quite, but nearly. That stuff's all good, but how the AI chooses its targets, a massive flaw, dude. A massive flaw.
Yeah, I feel like that needed a bit more refinement. You're right. Maybe, Aerith, doesn't get, aggroed, or at least, not by everyone. Maybe it's down to the person you've switched into. So if it's like Barrett, for instance, or, like say Red 13, then yeah, okay, fine. I don't mind that if they're all just going to automatically go to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of agree with that, but
like for some characters, like I say, like the melee characters, I suppose that's fine. You want them to come into melee range, but like I say, Barrett is a ranged character, Aerith is a ranged character. Yuffie is in the middle, I suppose. She can kind of do a bit of both, I suppose. I know how much you love Yuffie, but Red's melee. Cloud, the main character, is melee. So
fucking Yuffie. Anyway, yeah, okay. No, I didn't like Yuffie very much. She was a bit annoying. She was kind of funny in places, but it's sort of largely irritating. And I guess that's what it was the point.
Well, you didn't play through the DLC of her, and she's kind of annoying in that there is a little bit of a serious thing that happens right at the end that gives her purpose and reason to want to get revenge on Shinra. Yeah, but for the most of it, she's comedy character. I don't think I hated her as much as you, probably because I thought she was quite a powerful character to actually play in the game, because she could do a bit of both. So she could be. So a lot of times she was my third character because she could do ranged if required, and she could do melee if required. So she was quite good to have Cloud and Aerith, which is what I nearly always had, and then Yuffie would kind of be the one in the middle. So
yeah.
I mean, that's the gameplay. Like I say, most of the gameplay is good. Like I say, most of the combat system is good overall. I'm not, but there's a couple of things that I've really noticed about it, which was just the AI.
So let's move on to the story and okay, there's quite a bit to get through with this story. So all right, so sort of briefly touching on the previous game remake.
Before you start, for anyone who did watch our reviews, and we spoke about it quite a lot, about, and me and Pete brainstormed in at least 2 or 3 different videos, and we would have conversations about ideas that they could do in the second game, right? So this is obviously before Rebirth came out, and to be honest, Pete, me and you went through a lot of potentially good ideas, I think, that roads they could have gone down. And maybe, and I'll take my own responsibility for this, maybe I hyped it up too much in my mind, because the ending of the first game was, they really went hell-bent on, you can change everyone's destinies, it's not going to be like the first game. And they went heavily in on that, especially the last half an hour or so of the first game. Heavily. Everybody's destinies change. And we both know what that majorly meant, because the biggest thing that happens in the original game is the death of a certain character who you can't bring back.
Yeah.
They played right into that. We both know that they did. And they gave you, and this is the thing, they gave you, which in my opinion, you might disagree slightly because of the whole multiverse thing, but in my opinion, they teased you and then screwed you. That's
exactly what they did. They teased you. They said, you might be able to save her, and then during the second one, stuff happens. I mean, like, it's very convoluted, and this was kind of the main point I wanted to get onto. The storyline is very ambiguous.
Yeah.
It's convoluted.
Yeah.
And it tries to be clever. I'm not exactly certain that it succeeds.
No, I don't think it does.
And I think the ending, sort of the last few hours, was was too much. It was just trying to be sort of, oh, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this. It's designed to confuse the fuck out of you, and that's exactly what it does, because they wanted people on the internet to start theorizing, having hundreds of pages of chat forums going on about what they think the symbolism means, or the whatever. But this is a spoiler podcast, so
there will be. Yeah, we will. I mean, I already did spoil it a little bit, but there will be.
we're just gonna explain. So Aerith dies, and they hint at the fact that she might be able to be saved. And what really pissed me off was that when it comes to that scene in the Temple of the Ancients,
yeah.
You see Sephiroth flying down to her.
Oh God, mate!
And then
he blocks it, mate. He blocks it, and then all of a sudden,
yeah.
Oh no, he didn't. What the fuck?
I know.
Off.
Yeah,
my reaction was fuck off. That was
yeah. I was really annoyed at that. I was like, wow, really? You're going to be that blatantly bastardish about it? And then it got kind of sweet, because Cloud didn't want to believe that she had died. Apparently, we'll get to that.
That's because she was speaking to him afterwards.
Yeah, so everyone's like, "What the fuck is going on?" She's speaking to him, but with everyone else's POV, she's dead. So you think, oh well, it's all in his head. But is it?
I mean, I've read some theories saying that it's Sephiroth. Like, it's not her, it's Sephiroth fucking with him. I've seen theories saying it's Sephiroth fucking with him, and then there's other theories that because of the whole, we'll get onto the multiverse, and I think it's caused a massive issue, like it does in a lot of other IPs, and that there's loads of theories, dude. I mean, I could go on for ages. There's loads of different theories and speculation that, to be honest with you, will probably not be answered, because they didn't answer some of the things from the first game. They just kind of almost like they just forgot, or they brushed it aside.
They will answer them. They will answer them.
Well, you got more faith in them than I do, dude.
They know exactly what they're doing, bro. And when they decided to make everything so convoluted at the end, I think they did it because they didn't want people to work out what's going to happen. And I think I'm clever enough to work out what is going to happen. And people can sort of theorize until the cows come home, but I've watched the ending, and I think I know what's going to happen. And that is that Aerith is going to wake up in the other universe, and she's going to, the dead Aerith is going to save the day, but this version of Aerith is going to cross over, because we've been given an example of that with Cloud's mate, right? Zack, the soldier guy. So we know that can happen, and the developers did that on purpose. They showed us that people can cross over. They wouldn't have done that for no reason. So, and they made it all convoluted for you to start second and third and fourth guessing of it. What's going to happen. That's why they did it. So that's why I believe, because I am a story writer as well. I'm working on a cinematic, so I have lots of experience with story building, especially from college days.
Just looking at the chat, big up to Carl Simpson and Colm in the chat, because they're actually writing stuff.
Oh yeah, hey Coleman, Carl.
Yeah, nice Tifa. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say no to Tifa. I'm an Aerith guy, but I certainly wouldn't say no to Tifa.
I'd go with Tifa, but I'd be thinking of Aerith.
That's a great Red Dwarf quote.
Yeah. I'd go with Betty, but I'd be thinking of Wilma.
Sorry, Pete, go on, continue. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, so I know, well, I say I know, but according to my expertise, because I'm not a stranger to plotline development, I think that's what they're going to do. At some point during the third game, Aerith is going to appear, and everyone's going to be like, what the fuck? There's just going to be this bomb drop moment, and she's going to stay and be with Cloud. I guess depending on who
Which
you
version?
took on a date
Which
with.
version?
The alternate universe version.
But so what happens to the Clouds in the other version? Then you remember Clouds in both versions. He's a vegetable, but he's still there. What happens to that version of him?
He's probably going to stay being a vegetable. Or the universes stay separate and will end
the
up.
only thing they can do, because Zack says something near the end of the game, right? One of the
Mhm.
last things he says is maybe there's a way to bring it all back together. So I think that's the route they're going to do, because all the skies are cracking, right? All the skies are breaking apart, right? That's what they all see.
So the worlds are breaking apart.
Yeah, so Cloud sees it. Cloud, one of the last scenes of the game is Cloud looks up and sees the broken sky, and then the other characters are like, "What's he looking at?" And they look up and they see a normal sky.
Yeah.
So something
Cloud's
has happened to him that he
Aerith
sees.
has given Cloud some of her abilities as well. Clearly, I mean, like the ability to see things that other people can't really see. It's like she's probably had this sort of visions throughout the entire couple of games. That like she has a lot of visions. She can see things.
This is the thing that also doesn't make sense, Pete, because of how she acts. We both picked up on it in the first game, and we have to talk about the first game a little bit for this to make sense. In the first game, I remember saying to you, because you played it way before I did, and I remember saying to you in one of the early area scenes, I remember saying to you, she knows all about Sephiroth. She's already met him. She knows who Sephiroth is before Cloud tells her. You can tell by the look on her face. She knows it. What happened to that whole she knows what's going to happen stuff? She's got this information, and all of a sudden it's like that she just forgets that she knew all this stuff.
No. She does know what's going on, bruv. She absolutely knows what's going on, and I'm fairly certain that all the versions of Aerith are linked, right? So they share a hive mind, I think, and so she knows exactly what's happening, and she's seen lots of variants. She's like Doctor Strange, right? In fucking whatever.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Carl's put it in the chat, and we'll get to it. The whole multiverse thing, and I think I was okay with it originally. And originally we thought there'd only be 2, didn't we? And once we realised that they were going to completely do the whole multiverse, that's when I was like, oh.
Yeah, I thought they might do that. Holmes says no Aerith dies here. Loss is one of the main trigger points for Cloud to fight Sephiroth. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they knew that needed to happen, which is why I think they're trying to please both worlds, because they know that there's a divide between those who are fine with Aerith dying and those who want her back.
Some people cheat a lot. Well, a lot of people chose Tifa. A lot of people, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably pretty close to 50-50. I've heard, a lot of people, so they're all beloved characters, but of course the game chooses for you, which nowadays isn't a good thing. Back then, we were just lucky to get a story, but nowadays I think, and I'll be honest, the fact that this game does not particularly let me choose, it lets me choose who I go on a date with, but if it's going to follow the same storyline, then I'm going to end up with Tifa whether I want to or not.
Yeah, well, this is why I think they're changing things. So in the third game, nice for you, ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is why I think, they're going to change it. They're going to bring her back in whatever form or way. It's going to be Aerith, bro. It's not like it's a different Aerith, because they share a hive mind. So she's just going to be the same Aerith.
So if they do share a hive mind, then I'm okay with it. If they don't share a hive mind, then technically the Cloud U players, we'll call him main Cloud for argument's sake. The Aerith, obviously, if she comes back, would have no history with Cloud. And you can say that. Have you ever seen a series called Chuck?
Oh yes.
It's got the girl who is Miranda from Mass Effect in it. That's the funny thing. She's the main love interest in it.
Oh, nice.
And anyway, it reminds me of that. Whereas the end of the series, spoilers for anyone who's not seen Chuck. So that's there.
Is that the one? I might be getting confused. Is that the one where it follows a serial killer?
No, that's
that's something else. Okay.
Yeah. No, Chuck is the one where he's a dork. It's the guy who plays him is the guy who ended up playing Shazam, obviously many years before. And basically, it's a comedy spy show. And basically, the point that I'm bringing it up is that basically one of the last things that happens is the girl, the love interest, who they eventually get together in one of the later seasons, they eventually, obviously, most of the seasons is will they, won't they? Then they do, and then they have her lose all her memories. One of the last things they do. It's terrible. It's literally ruined the show. But that's not the point. The point is, that's one of the last things that happens is they end up back together, but she has no memories of him. So he's literally got to kind of build a relationship with her right from scratch. And that's what I mean by if that's the same thing that would have to happen. Because from Erity's point of view, if she hasn't got the hive mind stuff, she's never met Cloud. Whereas Cloud's got all this history with her that she won't react to. Do you understand?
So I must quote the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe plotline here, okay. Because it's fairly relevant. So
Dexter, that's it, Carl, yeah. Dexter.
So basically in Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you've got a lion, and it's very much a mystery to start off with about who this guy is. Obviously, he's someone who can create worlds, and it therefore turns out that he's like the mirror image of someone like Jesus or whatever in a different universe. And so there you've got the antagonist in the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe who tries to kill the lion, and the lion sort of is willingly sacrificed. He just all right, fair enough, I'll do it. But what the lion knows is that there's a deeper magic, he calls it. It's a deeper magic, and it's a deeper understanding of the universe where he knows stuff that the witch doesn't. And he comes back and, takes out the witch. So in that situation, that plot line, I think is something that's going to apply here, in that Eris is the lion of sorts who has a deeper understanding of things, and so she knows that it doesn't really matter if she dies, because there's there's hundreds of her, if not thousands of her, in all these different multiverses, and now that the world is cracking and people can transfer over, someone can, another version of her can transfer over if she wishes, or if Cloud wishes. I think we could be getting options there. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I'm not saying you're wrong, and that is maybe the route they will go. And I suppose that if she retains her memories, I suppose that I personally, because I shipped them, especially as a kid, I personally would accept that. It wouldn't be the route I would have gone, but I personally would probably be okay with that end result. But the multiverse as a whole, I mean, we've got guys in the chat. I mean,
I hate multiverse shit.
It generally ruins most franchises it touches. I mean, the Marvel obviously is the big one right now that we can think of, right? It literally is ruined Phase 4 onwards, right? And I'll tell you why it does. And this is also my problem a little bit. This is that, for example, Iron Man, right? The kind of most beloved character, he dies.
Mm-hmm.
But there's loads of versions. Spoilers for Endgame.
Yeah, and now he's Doctor fucking Doom.
Well,
whoopee.
Yeah, I mean.
Anyway.
Yeah, and so it just means that everything just loses a lot of its importance. I know that they're trying to say that they're all connected and that there's a bigger threat that is destroying all the dimensions and stuff like that, and that's what Sephiroth wants to do. He wants to rule all of the either destroy all the dimensions or rule all the dimensions with his mum, Genova. Spoiler again. So I know they're trying to come up with a bigger thing, but I mean, isn't that just what the Loki season 2 did? You might not have seen it, Pete, where all the timelines are all branched together, and he who remains, who ends up being Kang the Conqueror. It's a similar kind of thing where he's responsible for everything at the end of time, and he's kind of controlling all the timelines so that everything balances out. And then the female Loki, yes, that's a thing, kills him, and then spoilers again for Loki season 1, folks. And then all the timelines all get dispersed, and all the shit hits the fan now because everything all these different branches have appeared, and you just get to these things, and it's just that stuff loses importance. The death of Tony Stark, for example, I now look at that and say, well, who gives a shit? There's millions of other ones.
This is what I was going to talk about in terms of multiverses. It's a move where the writer feels cocky enough to be able to sort of pull it off. which isn't such a good thing in terms of a huge corporation. Because, well, not necessarily anyway, because what that tells me is that, oh, they think that, they're being clever and they know what they're doing, when clearly after phase 2 or whatever it was end game.
Phase 3, yeah.
Phase 3, okay. They shot themselves in the foot when it came to sort of trying to be diverse / feminist, or modern feminism, not classical feminism, because that's what I agree with, not this modern bullshit anyway. So yeah, they were trying to be too clever, I felt, and with introducing multiple universes, you have to be really clever, and it's my opinion that you have to set a heavy set of rules in that you have to establish for yourself what you can and can't do. And I think with multiverses you have to be fairly restrictive, because unless you really know what you're doing. But for me, I don't like the idea of having multiverses in the first place, because for the exact same reason of what you just mentioned, is that having a character dying just loses its luster. It loses its charge.
Pete, it lowers the stakes.
It does a lot, because
for storylines, it lowers the stakes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. And again, if you know what you're doing and you're very experienced and you are actually a clever writer, then it can work out. Look at things like Back to the Future and stuff like that. So it's something. I say Back to the Future, but I'm talking about future and past. Now, that was a bad analogy. I don't mean Back to the Future at all.
No, that's not technically multiverses. That's just time travel. It's
just time travel. But time travel is a very complex thing, and they were clever enough to work out exactly what the rules were and to have a nice, engaging storyline, right? So I guess that's the link I'm making. But yeah, I mean, like I just didn't like. Well, in terms of storyline, it was, it was mostly all right, but it was just the last bit where it was just like, okay, you're just confusing everyone on purpose, and it's annoying.
Let me tell you an issue. One more thing on it as well. There was issues for me with the tone of the game. It would be all over the shop, because you'd have moments of serious stuff happening with, people getting killed and stuff like that, and there was a lot of seriousness behind it, serious stuff. I'm not going to say mature stuff, because this isn't a game which goes into stuff like the darker things. It's not an 18 rated game, really. Doesn't really go into that far, but there's more serious stuff than others. So one minute there's something serious happens, somebody's died or something like that, and the next minute there's like, for example, Red 13, who takes part in the card game, and he appears and he does a moonwalk. I'm serious.
Right.
He's Red 13, who's a cat, dresses up as a guard so that he can take part in the card game tournament on the ship.
Right.
And then he moonwalks like Michael Jackson.
I missed that.
I wish I could have missed it.
Yeah, that's kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit, isn't it?
I'm just giving you an example of the tonal shift. Now, granted, this wasn't right after a serious scene, but there was quite a serious scene after, where the ship gets invaded by creatures, and there's people who are hurt and stuff like that. So they've jumped from a stupid comedy thing, which, by the way, the comedy is. I don't think it's that high quality. Maybe I'm just too old, right? Maybe teenagers and stuff, they'll like it, I guess. But I guess maybe it's just
But no, the only real funny bits was Yuffie throwing up after she was on, like either on the plane or on the buggy or something. I just thought that was a little bit amusing. She's just like literally baths after every ride.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, maybe it's an age thing, but I didn't find it that funny, I suppose. But I mean, but the original game had its sense of silliness as well. So I can't sit here and say, well, the original Final Fantasy VII didn't have, it did, and I played it when I was much younger, so of course I probably didn't reject it as much as I do being, middle aged. But the tonal shift is important, and I just felt that it didn't know when to take itself seriously or not. And I guess that's a problem when you've got so many kind of quirky, is the term I'd use, quirky side quests. Most of the side quests are quirky. Very, very few of the side quests are that serious. They're on the quirky side. So what you've got is you've obviously got a main plot that is meant to be serious, right? The whole world's going to be destroyed by Sephiroth if he does what he does, right? So you've got a very serious premise that all the characters are very serious about. And then along the way, they flood you with all these silly mini games and side quests, most of which, like I say, are quite light in tone. And you just think to yourself, well, I'm jumping back and forth here from doing silly things, and then
to serious things,
and then there will be certain cutscenes at certain trigger points, like you say, when you're moving to new areas. There'll be certain boss battles and key things that are on the serious side. But I've just done some silly stuff for the last 2 hours. I've just done silly stuff with no importance, really.
Can I just say briefly, and this is a slight deviation, Tifa looks like if she got pregnant, she'd have serious back issues. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean,
those two, like, friends of hers are just absolutely colossal. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and it was a different time, dude. They probably panicked a little bit. They're probably like, well, when Tifa came out in '97, that was kind of around the Lara Croft era, so we all wanted those gigantic Bazumas.
Yeah, and now it's like,
and now 20 years later, shit, that's kind of sexist. What are we gonna do? We can't really reduce them, and they didn't really. They're slightly. Maybe.
Well, no, this is why they added a black top underneath the white thing, because if it was a different world, then there wouldn't have been that black top. But anyway, yeah, I mean, like, I like the fact that they service the fans with having like this beach area.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. They know that they've got the two hot girls. Either you were a Tifa or you were Aerith. Very few people were not one of them. Most blokes anyway, and some women, of course.
Barrett.
Well, you could technically go on a date. I mean, you can in this game. Technically, in this game, you can go on a date with Barrett. You can go on a date with Red, which is weird.
Oh yeah, that would be freaky. Yeah, that's a bit too extreme.
And I've seen the Yuffie one. I looked online. I've seen the Aerith from Tifa one, and there's different versions of them, which is fucking annoying. And I admit I did look at the other ones, and it's pretty. I mean, she's pretty young, dude. I think she's meant to be. Like,
who is? Sorry,
Yuffie. You can romance Yuffie in this game. You can romance. You can go on the date with Yuffie in this game.
Cradle snatcher.
It is on the young side, yeah.
Yeah. But they're servicing the fans, and that is exactly what they. So yeah, look, the storyline needed a lot of work, and the decisions that they made, which we've mentioned, I guess I understand them, and this is the best way that they could go. But I'm fairly certain that what I mentioned in terms of my theory is kind of going to work out, because it's what she says. Aerith says during this scene that I'm watching now.
Yeah, they're on the beach. Yeah, I know.
They're on the beach, and she says something really weird. I can't remember what it is, but it's something to do with "I'll come back, I'll be back."
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that she, at this point, I mean, this scene, she knows that she's dying. It's obvious. I think it's obvious that she knows she's dying. How she reacts at Cosmo Canyon as well, I think, also kind of like she says something like, "You've got to enjoy the moments," and that's a giveaway, isn't it? That's her more or less saying that she knows she's going to die, so she's got to
enjoy your time with me.
Yes.
But she says that afterward. I'm pretty sure she does. She says, "But I will be back," or something to that effect. And I don't know. I hope other people picked up on it. They must have, but whatever. So yeah, I don't know what to feel about the story, because initially I was very annoyed with the ending, and that especially with the bit where you think that Cloud is saved.
I think the point to deviate, you might be right, and maybe at the end of the third game, I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe it will just be a simple choice. Oh, you want Tifa, you want Aerith. Maybe they'll be as blunt as that. I don't know.
Can't I have both?
Probably not. No, this is what I mean. Probably one of them.
Alternating nights.
Yeah. Well, you know what happened to Geralt in The Witcher when he tried that. So I wouldn't have done it this way, and maybe that's why it's one of those things where I'm so passionate, obviously, about the game that I want it my way. It hasn't ended up going the way I wanted it, so I'm pissed off. And maybe it is as simple as that for me, because they didn't do what I wanted them to do. And in my defense, they hinted that they would do it. If they wouldn't have hinted that they would do it in the first game, I wouldn't have got my hopes up.
You probably wouldn't have started playing it at all, because I remember you know, when you first started, before you first.
Yeah, because I didn't really want to, because it was quite an important part in my young life. I didn't really want to relive it, and I've ended up reliving it when
because it's really based on the hope that Harris might live. Oh,
yes,
bless you.
because of the bullshit they fed me in the end of the first game. So of course I'm going to react badly when I find out that I can't do. And again, you're telling me that they couldn't have included a mechanic, and don't make it easy to do. Make me work for it. And you know what? I don't mind working for it. Make me work for it, and have both those scenes in the game. Have me that you can block it. Hell, they did the cutscene where he blocks it, but have one of them stick based upon something you do in game. But you want to know why they didn't do it? And I remember saying this to you when we did the review of the first game. I said to you, I doubt they will put the resources in to make the third game they'd have to make almost 2 games, because one where Aerith is alive and one where they're dead. And I always said to you, that was always my biggest concern. They would have to literally make 2 games to a certain degree. It's a lot of work, because in one of them, you've got one of the main characters alive and one of the main characters dead. And in the end, they did what I thought they would do, and they flaked out and couldn't be asked. But if they, in my opinion, they should have added that, and this was the time to do it. So the third game would be, imagine if you could save her. What would the third game look like? We've completely deviated from the big thing. What could the third game look like? But now
we've mentioned this before. Sorry, we mentioned this before, where like during our Mass Effect review in particular, where the dynamic of, based on the previous franchise's game save that you have, the game changes, and it is a completely different type of game. And Mass Effect really started that.
Amazing what they did, dude. Because if the suicide mission in part 2, if you got all of them killed, as I said in our review, I did do that on purpose to see what would happen, and 2 characters live. So if you go on to the third game, think how many little options you've got in the third game. Think about all the characters that are now dead that all died in the suicide mission. Yeah. So it's significantly going to be a different game, and they could have done. They could have. That's what annoys me. They could have done it.
Well, I think they would have argued that it takes some of the luster away from Cloud wanting to kill Sephiroth, but then it was already there, I think. I don't know. Anyway, their decision is their decision. Largely, as I said, the storyline is okay. It's not bad, but then up to the last sort of 10% or 20%, they just really went ham.
What Com said in the chat there, Pete, that's exactly what I mean, Com. That's exactly it. They could have based the whole, because they've got this whole system in the game anyway, which ends up being just about a day. It doesn't affect anything else. Your stats don't go up. You would have thought that maybe, that your stats go up or something based upon. No, it's not. It's just a flat meter. Whoever's got the highest meter at a certain point in the game, chapter 13, you get to have the date, and that's all it affects. You could have easily had that if you gained enough points, maybe for the whole team or whatever, that there was a trigger point where you could save Aerith. There's stuff they could have done, bro, just like Com's saying, mate.
Yeah. Totally agree. But for some reason they chose not to. Maybe it was the limitations of the engine. Who knows? I don't understand the limits of Unreal Engine at the moment in terms of game design, but I don't know, the fact that they were on Unreal Engine 4 kind of like it's restrictive. I mean, you can code the granny out of it, just like what CD Projekt Red are doing right now. But anyway,
I just think, I mean, well, obviously, we've been going for a while, so we'll end it in a sec. But I just think they dropped the ball. I think, to me, they fumbled the ball in the story.
let's just talk about the music a little bit because,
Okay.
as I recall, the music was very.
Oh,
It was all right. It wasn't bad, but it didn't sort of stand out to me. And I felt I was annoyed with some of the themes, especially when you're in the jungle area. That was kind of starting to get a bit irritating. But yeah, I mean, like, other than that, it was all right.
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the game, when you go back to, or you try to go back to Midgar, right? So at the end of the first game, you're standing on the high street, right, outside Midgar.
Yeah.
So the high street is in the game world. So if you start walking down the high street, as I said, the theme, the ending song from the first game starts playing, and I was absolutely amazed. And I just stood there watching the sun, listening to the song because I really like the song. It's just instrumental, by the way, so there's no lyrics. But then the battle music's okay because it's ripped off from, well, not ripped off because it's the same company, but it's the same theme, slightly changed. So the battle musics are okay, but I agree with you that the actual area musics are not great. And I tell you what, they've got a couple of these comedy songs. There is a quest, right? Com, if you're watching, go. Since I know Com's watching, and maybe Carl is as well, you can hear this song on YouTube. It's called the Bow Wow song. You put in Final Fantasy Rebirth Bow Wow song and listen to it. That song is in the game, and it's only plays when you're doing a certain quest. Guess what the quest is about? A dog. And you have to follow the dog. And it's 2 of these missions that I've come across. There could be more that I haven't come across yet. Hopefully there's only 2. And this song, Bow Wow Wow. And it's like listening to like a Japanese kind of commercial for like.
Yeah, I mean, like, but what really puzzles me is that apparently there's like they said there was like hundreds of music tracks.
Yes, Bow Wow song.
Put in
Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth Bow Wow song, and you'll hear what I had to hear.
Yeah, so like for a game that has hundreds of music tracks, it didn't feel like it at all.
No.
It felt like they were just like maybe 50 or 60 because like the exploration music, there's literally like 2, right? And they get grating after a while. Yeah, I mean, it was fine, but improvements could have been made there as well.
Well, I think an issue they had is that because they had in the first game via the jukebox. Do you remember they had all the tracks?
Yeah.
Kind of already remastered. So a lot of it was tracks from discs 2 and 3 that they'd remastered, and obviously this is the second game, so this technically is disc 2. So a lot of the songs are the same ones, which is fine because they're pretty good. It takes off the originals, most of them, and most of those ones are pretty good. It's just a couple of these songs which just come across so childish, and it makes me feel like a child. And it's like, well, no, I'm fucking in my 40s and I'm listening to a song about a dog. And it's just like this is just not. It felt like this game is not made for me. But of course, in other ways, of course, it's made for me because I grew up on the original game. So of course, it's made for me. But in other ways, it's like it's not made for me at all. What is this stuff? Some of these side quests are so incredibly charged. It's a difficult one, dude. I don't know what I was playing sometimes, and that's why it felt. Like I say, it comes down to the whole tonal shift I was talking about. Sometimes I felt like I was playing Final Fantasy as it's meant to be. Other times I thought I was playing a weird kind of Japanese game. I've got more tolerance than you for the whole Japanese culture thing, but even I was just like, what is this?
Well, I tell you what it is, bro. Okay. And this is just like, I really don't care if this annoys people because it's my opinion. But anime is fine. Okay. Right. I don't hate, dislike it. But like, with something like this, what really annoys me is that everyone is either fit or old. There doesn't seem to be any sort of middle ground, right?
No.
I based that based on this chick that's just come out of a helicopter. She's just gone back in now. I mean, like, she looks exactly like Tifa with a different haircut. Come on,
Yeah,
man.
it's Elena who, yeah, she was in the original. She was actually in the original game, but yeah, I know what you mean.
She's just Tifa with a different haircut.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that kind of really annoys me. Can we just have like people who are in the middle? Having the main cast being stunning is fine. That's cool, but not everyone is a supermodel. You know what I mean? And anime tends to do that.
Yeah.
What they also tend to do is pull all these weird anime poses, which they've toned down massively in this one. It was a bit sort of too prevalent in the previous title, but for this one, yeah, they kind of brought it back a little bit. They made it more subtle. So that's fine. But okay, so let's just, unless there's anything you want to talk about.
I mean, we've covered this. We just covered the soundtrack. We've covered the story.
Gameplay.
We've covered the gameplay. We've given an opinion, or at least you have, where you think the story is going to go. I'm actually not sure. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I do think that there will be an ultimate version of Aerith. Just like I think there's going to be an ultimate version of Sephiroth. I don't know how they're going to. I don't know if they're going to give you a choice. I don't know how they're going to work that, or what they're going to do. Just have Cloud stand there and have Aerith one side, Tifa one side, and you just flick the controller to the direction. Do you know what I mean? I can't see it. So I don't know if they're even going to bother. They might, and like I say, and there is a part of me that does think that, up till this point, even though they said they weren't going to follow the story, if you look at the majority of the game, it does follow the story, because you do go to the same locations in the same order. Yeah. So that suggests to me is that they are actually remained quite rigid, although promises of not being rigid. The only exception is obviously the stuff with Zack. That is the stuff that is completely unique, is all the stuff with Zack. Which, by the way, is an incredibly small part of the game. If you thought that you were going to play as Zack in this game and be doing a lot of stuff with him, no, it's mostly
mistaken, mate. Yeah, there's a bit, it's not much fighting Sephiroth or whatever, but yeah, so, I know what you mean.
So a part of me does think that they are going to make it very, very as it was, which means for me that I'm going to have the same problems that I did with the original game regarding the story, is that I'm an Aerith guy and I'm not going to be happy if the other characters more or less forced on me, because there's no other options. In a game in 2024, that doesn't sound like a good idea. In a game in 1997, I was just happy to have a great story. In 2024, with the amount of choices and stuff there should be and everything in your RPGs, it doesn't sound too great to me. If I would have known that at the start, and as I did say to you at the start, then I don't know if it was worth my time. I mean, I will probably play the third game. I'll probably go and finish this game. I will probably. I know what I'm like. Eventually, I'll go and finish this game eventually, when I feel like it. But
I'm keen to know what happens, obviously, and I'll be watching the next game movie when it comes out. But I think they kind of missed a few tricks with this game, and we've discussed what they are.
Yeah.
On the whole, I think this game gets a 7 out of 10 for me personally, because I got very bored. And normally I don't get bored when I watch gameplay I really want to see.
Well, you were watching that Maximilian dude, and I remember you telling me that he was playing a story, and then he just spent like 3 or 4 hours just doing side quests, and it was just like so dull.
He did everything, and
it's
he usually,
like me, probably.
Yeah, he's the sort of guy that usually just goes through and plays the game, whatever. But for this time, yeah, he just went through and did everything, and it just got really monotonous. It's got nothing to do with the actual, streamer himself. The game was just like, oh, come on, man. So yeah, it felt like they were dragging a lot of things out as well. So yeah. So yes, it's 7 out of 10 because it's a great effort, and they put a lot of hours into it and a lot of thought. But I kind of think
the quality is there. You can tell the quality and the love is kind of there, at least cosmetically. The quality and the love is there. I don't know if the quality and love is there in the story. I have my doubts a little bit. If it is.
They overcooked it. I think a lot of people agree is that it's a bit too overproduced and and sort of overthought as well. So
Big up to Dermo in the chat, and Dermo, listen to Com. Go play the original. I agree.
Dermo. So yes, what would be your rating?
I generally don't do the halves because I don't really understand the point.
No, I don't do halves.
But it would have been a 7.5. So I suppose I'll round up and give it an 8. But if I were to do the halves, it would be slightly higher than yours. But if it is an 8, it's the lowest end of an 8 because it's hard not to look past certain qualities. But a game's meant to be enjoyable, and I enjoyed it at the start. But the more I played of it, the more I was just like, I've already done this, I've already done this, I've already done this, I've already done this minigame. This is just a harder, more annoying version of this minigame, but I've already done the minigame. Yeah. I've already operated all the towers. I've already fought you know what I mean? Oh, you wanted me to fight another enemy, so it's just a slightly harder version of the normal enemy. And it's like, well, no, I've already, you know what I mean? And then the feeling when you enter a new region and then you see all the things starting to pop out and you're just thinking, oh God, so now I've got to do another like 20 hours of side quest, because that's how much it is in order to see everything. It's like, if you're someone who just wants the story, avoids all side quests and just follows the story, I think you'll probably like the game.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not that person, you won't like it and it will wear on you and it would be too much. That's how I view it.
Yeah.
I'll give it an 8 because I don't do 7.5s. So an 8.
Yeah, that sounds fair to me. Anyway, it remains to be seen what they're going to do plot-wise for the third one, but I think my theory is more or less correct. Tell us what you guys think, and we really would like to hear from you here, because for a long time we weren't sure where our thoughts lie, and so it would be nice to have a little bit of a chat and an input with you guys.
Yeah, I know that it's a very long game, so if you have managed to complete it, tell us what you think. It's a very long game.
Yeah, let us know your theories as well. We'd love to hear those as well. Okay, everyone, we're going to wrap it up there. So if you do like our show, you know what to do. Please subscribe, like, comment, slap the notification bell as hard as you can. And we have a Patreon channel for those who are unaware, and if you choose to support us, that'll enable us to be a bit more honest and able to sort of speak a lot more freely on YouTube without worrying about demonetization and avoiding banned words like fuck, shit, cunt, abuse, whatever. I can't think of any more swear words, bell end. Yeah. All right, everyone. So until the next time, which is going to be tomorrow, actually. Let me just explain. We're doing a live
tomorrow, live from Germany. Is it 7:30 or 7? It's round about that.
It's about then. We'll be doing a live reaction. So if you fancy joining us, then please do. But, you know, I know in my heart that a lot of you out there are going to be watching someone else. So that's absolutely fine. It's your decision. All right, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow about 7ish. Who knows? And yeah, take care.
Take care.